Well, hello everyone. Hello everybody. Welcome to yet another workshop of the Computing Research Engagement and Awareness workshop series. Today is about how to get involved in research, and it's going to be more presentation style. So there's a lot of information we would like to share with you. But in the middle, we're going to pause quite a few times for Q&A, just to keep you involved and keep you engaged. We'll start with just a few disclaimers, and Julia will start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone is aware this workshop is being recorded. It will be made available to anybody who's registered after the fact on YouTube, as well as on the UR to PhD webpage.
Sorry, technical.
And then this is a quick picture of our team. So these workshops are designed and facilitated by Christine Bazem and Nima Moshiri. Christine is at the Wellesley College and Nima is at the University of California at San Diego. I am the Senior Program Associate for CRA and I support the UR to PhD program in all of its facets. So if at any point you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself. You can reach me and the program leadership team at ur2phd@cra.org. So a little bit about UR to PhD. UR to PhD is a virtual synchronous program that intends to help increase the number of North American women and gender marginalized individuals pursuing PhDs in computing. To do that, we're trying to expand access and increase retention through 4 primary program activities. And today, you're here for the research engagement and awareness workshops. These workshops intend to help students learn more about computing research, research careers, and research pathways. They happen every third Monday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Like I mentioned before, past workshops can be found on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. And they are available to all students regardless of whether or not you registered for past sessions. If you're looking for a little bit more support on how to actually apply to PhD programs, we do have a separate series for that. And that series happens every other Wednesdays at 4 p.m. So our next workshop will be on the 25th of September. The next workshop will focus on resumes and CVs and highlighting your personal experiences and interests within those. This QR code leads you directly to that registration page. So if you are interested in that, we highly encourage you to attend those workshops as well. But today we are here again for the research engagement and awareness workshops, and we're going to be talking about how to get involved in research. With that, I will hand it back to Christine for her to lead the rest of the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you. And it's so good to see a few of you here. Just to, again, like Julia said, so today is all about how to get involved in research. And, we've kind of divided this session into a few phases based on really the chronological order of like just piece by piece to try and understand what it's about. We'll start with what is undergraduate research in general, give you a quick idea, and then go deeper into how can I get involved in undergraduate research. From it, we transition to what should I expect if I join a research lab, and then eventually, what are the outcomes of undergraduate research experiences? Sounds good. All right, and as I mentioned, like with every one of those sections, we will, after each one, we're going to pause for a few minutes to see if any of you have questions. Feel free at any point of time to just type in your questions if you want. I'm going to be monitoring the chat if this is something you want, like in the middle. Also, Julia can help me out with the Q&A, and the two of us will kind of, monitor the situation, see if you have any questions. All right, let's get started. So we're going to begin with a quick activity. We're going to give this about 10 minutes. For this activity, we are going to split up into breakout rooms, and we'll work together in small groups. Julie and I are going to, jump into those breakout rooms every now and then to kind of see how the conversation is going. Like I said, this will last for about, less than 10 minutes. We'll try and make it less than 10 minutes. If you're done, you can leave the group, but what are you discussing within each group? We would like you to please discuss possible ways to get involved in undergraduate research. And with this, we don't mean that you are already engaged in an undergraduate research experience. We're here asking you to share if you already are in a research, if you already participate in undergraduate research, how did you get involved? If not, how do you think you could get involved? If you have friends or colleagues who are already involved, how did they do it? So basically, it's all about discussing possible ways to get involved in undergraduate research at your institution. It's okay to be specific and talk about your institution. And the second thing I want you to talk about is challenges you've personally encountered or expect to encounter when trying to get involved with undergraduate research. And with this, I'm not going to even say examples because I don't want you to get influenced by me. I want you to really think, like, from you personally, what do you think is the challenge? If you haven't started yet, like, what is stopping you? What do you think is the challenge that you might possibly encounter, or something that you've already encountered trying to get started? Sounds good? When we return to the main meeting, I would like you to please share a summary of your discussion in the chat. So just, when you're sharing, just, anybody from the group, feel free to, all of you even, contribute to the chat. I would ask you to please just start with your school name and then sharing whatever, snippet of information or snippet of knowledge that you've gained from that discussion. And the idea of putting your school name is in the beginning is to help your colleagues from the same school, in case there's a few of you from the same school, it would be good, to kind of be specific about that school so that if they can think about possible ways to get involved, they can learn from your experiences. Sounds good? Questions about the activity so far? I'm looking at the comments section in the chat. We're good? Okay, so let us break out into breakout rooms. And this is where I realized, yes, I should have.
Welcome back, everyone.
All right, welcome back. So please, some of you have already started doing that. So thank you for those who have started sharing a little bit about themselves. So you now had a chance to kind of talk a little bit about how you got involved in research, if you have, or possible ways to get involved, challenges that you've encountered. Maybe you've overcome them, maybe you still can't figure out how to overcome them. So if you could please just quickly share in the chat with us and others, just what school are you in, and what is it that you want to share? Is it how you got into research, or is it a challenge that you've encountered? And while we're doing that, I'm just going to move on to the next slide so that you can know what we're going to talk about. Okay, I'm gonna, in the meantime, I know people are typing, it takes a while to type. In the meantime, I'm going to read what we already have in the chat, because why not? So we had a share from Morgan. So I'm not going to say names, just so that doesn't get into the recording. So there's someone from the University of Toronto who's the third year studying statistics, and according to them, they had only 2 months of experience in research, but outside of their institution. And you'll see that that is common, and in quite a few schools, it's like the research opportunities in your own school might not be available. And hopefully today we're kind of, chat about ideas of what can you do when you can't find opportunities within your school. Oh, nice. We have another share. I'm a freshman at Purdue University studying biomedical engineering. I don't have research experience, but I'm excited to learn more, and that's excited. This is what this, so you came to the right talk here. That is perfect. All right. You know what? For the sake of time, since this is recording, let's not keep this on. Oh, no, wait, we have one more. I'm from Brea College. Nice, we have more. It was challenging to find research opportunities. Summer REUs were great experiences for me to strengthen my understanding of what research entails. So this is one of the things we're going to talk about, that if you can't find opportunities in institution, we will be talking about REUs. Thank you for sharing. And then we have another share and say, hey, I'm a sophomore at Williams College. I'm currently in the process of talking to faculty about potentially doing summer research with them next year. That's awesome. But one difficulty I'm facing is that a lot of people whom I want to do research with are going on leave, so I'll have to coordinate with their schedules. Yes, and that happens. That happens when you're trying to, faculty have different schedule. Not everybody stays through the summer. I am a senior undergraduate student of computer engineering with recently published papers by Cornell University on sentiment analysis and machine translation. Well, that's awesome. Then maybe we can kind of pick your brain about how the different things and ways that you've participated in that research. And then we have another share. I'm a senior at Georgia State University studying computer science and sociology. I'm creating my thesis now, prioritizing human-centered artificial intelligence and preparing for grad school. That's awesome. That is really great. Well, I'm glad we have such a nice mix of people here. I hope we can all share information and kind of spread the knowledge. All right, so let's get started. So this, like I said, today the conversation really, it's gonna be, I'm gonna like share with you, some of the information that I know that I'm familiar with, that like kind of the group got together. Just please note that this is not an exhaustive set of like advice. There's a lot of advice everywhere, but this is a way to kind of get you started. And we'll start with the idea of like what is undergraduate research. So for those of you who are just getting started, just the basic definition. Research is the discovery of new knowledge about the world, how it works, and what we can create. And when we're talking about computing research, then we're talking about the research that focuses on the invention of, creating new algorithms, new data structures, new systems, and also investigating how these ideas shape and are shaped by the world. So computing research is wide and vast, and there's a lot of applications. And it's really, I mean, really, it has so many shapes and forms. And if you want to know more, we highly recommend that you also check out spark.cra.org. It's a really excellent resource. It's a website that's been created by a lot of amazing experts at CRA to kind of summarizes some of the main things about computing research, and it's focused on undergrads. All right. So what does undergraduate research look like? So this section is all about what is it like. It's more about understanding it. Um, it has so many different variations. Projects can be anything from replicating an existing study and extending it using new data, to studying state-of-the-art software tools on new data sets, to conducting a human subject study on a specific user interface, modifying and evaluating existing software to implement a new idea based on a hypothesis, analyze a data set for specific characteristics, and many, many more, evaluating a system created for automating a task, and many more. If you want more ideas, if you want inspiration, highly recommend that you also check out the cool projects that are in the stories section of Spark. They have some really great stories there of undergrads, who made it, who had fun while doing research. Just so you know that like not it doesn't the outcome of the research, and we'll talk about that later, it doesn't have to be about the publication you get at the end. Of course, that's a great thing, but just the fun and the enjoyment and the learning that you get through the way is also as important. And this is what you can learn from those stories over here. They're really excellent stories. All right. All right. So one of the, first questions we usually get, like, what qualifications do I need to get into research? And this is where we would like to really um, let you know that you don't need to know how to do research in order to get started in doing research, because you will learn how to do research through the project itself. That is part of the process. Most professors who hire undergraduate students for research know that a big part of the process is the mentorship aspect of it. So you are going to be trained and taught and mentored into what is research through the research project itself. Um, However, we just want to give some recommendations. It's recommended that you get involved after you get some exposure to computing. And when we say some exposure to computing, we're really talking about, at least, maybe know how to code, maybe take a programming course or do a little bit of programming yourself on the side. First start with some exposure, and with that, you'll have enough experience to get started. So at least some familiarity with programming and data structures. And then for more advanced research projects, there's an expectation that you're a little bit more familiar with the research area of the project. So if your role involves doing a little bit more, a few advanced things within a project, then you should be expected to either, know the general area of research or the topic of research by taking a course on that topic, or from previous research experience, from something related to that topic. Sounds good. All right. And with that, we go with how can I get involved in research? Sorry, when can I get involved? So we talked about what is it, what qualifications do you need, when can you get involved? Here I'm going to talk about two things. One, you can get involved anytime during undergraduate career. So if you're thinking about which year should I get started, you can get started anytime. It depends on, the availability, what options of resources you have. You can start as a first year. You don't need to wait till your senior year. You don't need to wait until you have taken, like 10 CS courses. You can start from the first year if you have, a little bit of knowledge about computing. You can do research during, so the other part is when during the year can you do research? So you can do research during the academic year itself. And with that, the application deadlines for these positions vary based on the advisor and when they start hiring the students. or as part of a summer research program. And usually the application deadlines for summer programs and summer, REUs, they are usually early spring semester, or if you follow a quarter system, probably by the time you're in the third quarter, that's the time to kind of keep an eye out for summer stuff. Sounds good? All right. Next, we will be talking about how can I get involved in undergraduate research. But before I do that, I want to pause for a few seconds to see if there are any questions in the chat. Anything about what is research, qualifications, or when to get started?
And as a quick reminder, the Q&A is open, so if you don't want your question associated with your name, there is an anonymous option.
Okay, I'll keep going if there's nothing so far. Okay, so next is how can I get involved in undergraduate research? We'll start that with where can I find research opportunities? So we want you to know the following, and this is actually, I love this because this is kind of matches what people have shared in the chat earlier from the previous activity. You can find opportunities on campus. What does that mean? Professors hiring undergrads in their labs or in your department. So it could be that there are professors in your own department hiring undergraduates. It could be that your school or your department is offering research programs in collaboration with other departments and schools. And with that, I mean looking for specific programs that target, certain, groups of people. So I can speak about my school. I'm at Wellesley College. We always have multiple programs in the Science Center that are focused on STEM research. So they can offer you an opportunity to get paid for doing research, and you just apply, and then they match you to a professor. Not that you have to go to find the professor. Professor is already participating in the program, and you just need to apply to that program. So it could be that you can either go talk to the professor directly, and the professor is hiring and they're announcing it through their website, or it could be that it's your school that's offering programs that you can apply to, and then they will do the matching for you. There are off-campus opportunities as well that can be found, in different places. So one big example that's already been mentioned in the chat, and I love this. One big example is NSF REU, so the National Science Foundation. They maintain a list of research experience for undergraduate sites. And those are usually sites that are all over, I want to say mainly in North America, mostly US. Actually, I think no, it's mainly US because most of these opportunities are for US citizens. But you could find a few, things here and there. But most of them are for US citizens. And that's just something to note. Those experiences are usually during the summer. And those are the summer opportunities that I mentioned earlier that you need to look out for in the spring semester and start applying for them in the spring if you are interested in starting doing something in the summer. Another thing to keep an eye out for is the CRA's Distributed Research Experiences for Undergraduates, the DREW program. The DREW program is open for international students as well. So this one is open to everybody, and it basically helps match you to a research lab that is outside the institution. And then there are also national laboratories sponsored by the US Department of Energy, among many other things. And we will share links to everything in this next slide. So how can I find those opportunities? So we mentioned on campus. How can I go talk to a professor? How can I find professors? Well, first thing is look at faculty websites. So look at your professors' websites. Go talk to them. You can look at their website. You can see if they're hiring. Like I said, sometimes they just announce it on their websites and they say, hey, we're looking for undergraduates to work on this project. Let us know if you're interested or apply here if you're interested. So first step we would say is look at your faculty websites and go speak with them if you're interested, if you have questions. The other thing to do is talk to other students on campus, especially PhD students, if there are graduate programs at your institution. So if your institution has graduate programs, go talk to PhD students at different professors' labs. It could be that the professor is not hiring and they're not announcing it, but if a project is interesting enough and you had a good conversation with a PhD student, you could be able to talk your way into an opportunity, into at least shadowing and learning more about that project. Another way to get to know about on-campus opportunities is to sign up for school newsletters or joining a research-focused student clubs. Now they're popping up. I mean, different, of course, every school is different, but you could find that there's a student club that is just gathered, focused on research focused things. Some of the things I can think of is that there's usually ACMW chapters at different institutions. Those would be excellent ways to go and meet other students, undergraduate students who are also interested in research and kind of chat about research. All right, so that's for on campus. What about off campus? Off campus opportunities, here's the list of links. Here's a list for research experiences of undergraduate sites, REU sites. Here's the link that will take you to Drew so that you can learn more about it. And here is a link that will take you through a list of government and industry research labs that's been collected by the CRA. And last but not least, in terms of resources, we wanted again to remind you that we have an excellent resource called Spark. So that is part of this that was created by some CRA members. On that website, there's also a link to a town hall webinar that talks all about how to get involved as an undergraduate in research. All right. Thank you, Julia. Julia has also shared those links in the chat. Okay, so now that you know where to find those opportunities, well, let's talk about how can you reach out to potential mentors about those research opportunities. So let's say you're not going through the general off-campus things. Let's focus more on campus now. Or maybe a professor in another school that you find their research interesting. How do you reach out to them? Well, one of my favorite methods, that's really my personal opinion, everyone is different, but one of my favorite methods is really to reach out to a professor who's currently teaching you or has taught you in the past. I love it when my students come to me and they say, hey, tell us more about research. Tell us what you do. What is your lab about? And it's one of my favorite things. And then I just start talking and talking and talking. And usually we just talk for a very long time until they're the ones who have to stop. So you would be surprised that how professors just love telling students about their research. So just try that out. But how? I'm going to give you a few more specific pointers here. So what if you really want to work with a professor, but you haven't taken a class with them? What do you do? Like, it's easy. Sometimes it's easy to reach out to a professor that you know or who knows you and just let them know, hey, I'm in this course. Can I chat with you? What if you don't know the professor? Here's what we recommend. Go to their office hours, email them directly, or email one of their grad students. So this is in general advice of professors that you might not be comfortable to just walking up to them and being like, hey, tell me more about this. Try and find out when their office hours are. Just go to their office hours and chat with them if they're available. You can directly email them if you're comfortable, or you can try and reach them from their grad students. If you're going to email the professor, you should really show real interest. And this is something very important. So it is the email you write to your professor, to that potential advisor, will make a difference, because again, every advisor is different. Every advisor is going to react differently to the emails they get, but you should know that professors get a lot of emails. So just be careful about the following. Here's some little bits of advice. First of all, avoid generic ChatGPT style emails, please. We can tell. So this is my big piece of advice. We can tell when it's not you who wrote the email. Even if we don't know who you are, we can tell when it's ChatGPT. So please avoid the generic ones. And if you want to, and another good thing is you want to talk about why you are interested in research. That's another reason why to avoid the generic ones. You want the email to have a little bit about you as a student, as someone who's interested in research, as you. Why do you want to come talk to that professor? As a professor, this is something I look for in an email. I want to know a little bit more about you. And it's not as simple as just send me a CV. Of course, sending a CV is great, but I would like to know a little bit, just one liner or two about you. And then another thing I like to see is I like it when students do their homework. And when I say do their homework, even do their homework before they contact me for the first time. Read a little bit about the professor's projects and bring up at least one of them in your email. Talk about one of the professor's projects. Like, you reached out to a professor because you want to do research with them. Why? Which research project was exciting that you find? Which one did you find interesting? Did you even go to their website and check their projects? So show that you've done your homework, show that you've looked at their website, and show that why you're interested. And then last but not least, it's recommended that you attach your resume and transcript. So after you cover the main things in an email, attaching your resume or transcript helps the professor with, that like kind of solidify that decision. If they want to reply to you and say, yes, let's talk, or not. So including that always helps. All right. Now, I'm not just going to leave you with that. I'm actually going to show you an example email here. I did not create that email. That was from a very excellent website, and I can share it with everybody later. But this is from an excellent resource. I should add the reference here where I got this from. But here, just notice the important things. So in this, on the right-hand side, you'll see the email, how it starts with, Dear Professor X, I'm a student X at this college with this major. So you're introducing yourself. So first point is show that you're serious and well qualified. That's the first thing. You're not just someone who, so let's say, for example, you want to do biomedical research and you've never taken a biology course in your life. So that will matter. So just show that you're serious, show that you're well qualified. So that's at the beginning. And it doesn't have to be that you have 4.0 GPA. That is just, that's just there. It doesn't have to be that your GPA is amazing. It could just be that, hey, I'm very interested in this. I have read about this so much, and I would really love to participate in this program or in your research. Show that you're serious. Next thing, show that you're familiar with the professor's work. Just like I mentioned in the previous slide, it's a very important thing to show that you have done your homework, that you have actually gone through the research on the professor's work, that you have looked at their website, and that you've utilized all of that freely available information on their website. How can you show this? So those 3 points together, how do you show them? You show them by something like this paragraph. You talk about why you're interested. Again, you're still bringing it to your interests, and then you're bringing in the focus. Like, I want to focus on this, and maybe I've taken this course that in which I've read one of your papers, and I really enjoyed it, and I would like to, and I have ideas on it that I would like to build up, a research project on. I would like this to be a future research topic for me. I'm looking for graduate programs where I can work on this topic. This is where you show the professor that you know about their work, you have read their work before, and you've read it at a level where you really analyzed it and you thought about it, and you have ideas that came out of it. Sounds good? And then it's also important to show that you respect the professor's time by, okay, sorry, this is my mouse that does this all the time. Showing that you have respect for the professor's time by just bringing in that, paragraph of like, I hope you don't mind that I'm getting in touch. I would like to know if you're accepting graduate students. I would like to know if you're accepting undergrad students. And just, kind of bringing in that notion that you are not expecting a reply, but you would really, really love to get a reply. You would really love to hear back from the professor, and that you respect their time, but you would really love to chat more about this problem, and you would really love to get to know. Sounds good? So this would be, for me, an example, of a good email to send to professor. All right. What else? What if you sent the professor an email, or and then they were like, okay, let's chat. Come meet me that day, that time. Or let's say that you went the route of I'm gonna go see them in office hours. What questions should you ask them? Well, there is so much. There's a lot of questions that you can ask guide the conversation. Here, just a sample. One set of questions is, questions about their research, so the professor's research. Again, it shows that you're interested. Things like, in your work on X, how did you collect the data? Something that is like not just about tell me more about this project. It's kind of like a little bit of a specific question about the project. I'm interested to know, how did you collect the data? Questions like, have you tried experimenting with this data structure in Project Y? So like showing that you have come up with ideas as you're reading their work. You're kind of like, you thought of something else, and you're like, hey, did you try that out? What happened when you tried that out? Other questions about advising style and wrap structure. So you can also, again, it's important to know, how do they do advising? And that's actually even more important in grad school. But as an undergrad, also, you'd like to know how they structure the lab. How's the lab structured? How do you envision collaboration between graduate and undergraduate students? How are lab meetings structured? And if you're not sure if they're hiring undergraduates or not, you can add in this very explicit question. Are you working with undergraduate students this year? Or you can say, I'm interested in working with you. Do you think I'd have a good chance of working with you? Or if they say no, it's okay to ask the question, are there other faculty you think I'll be a good match for? All right, so these are all sample questions to kind of guide the discussion. And last but not least, it's good to know if it's a funded position or not. Sometimes it's important to know that. If they said yes to everything, know if you're getting paid. All right, so with this, I'm gonna pause just for a few seconds for questions. Any questions about how to reach out, to faculty, to mentors, how to, find research positions. By the way, if you want to prep your question anytime in the middle, like as I'm talking, if you think of anything, don't hesitate to just type it up. Okay, I guess we're good. Next, we'll talk about, so we covered what is undergraduate research, how to get involved. Next, we'll talk about, okay, you managed to get a research position. What should you expect when you join a research lab? All right, how does a typical research lab structure look like? Again, it varies greatly from institutions to institution and from professor to professor, but typically you'll find the following. I'm going to talk about large university because this is where you find the most hierarchy and the most structure. In large universities, expect your group to include postdocs. Those are people who already have their PhDs, who are working in the lab with your advisor on some of their own projects that they're leading. Graduate students, those are students who have their bachelor's or master's, and they're working towards their master's or PhD. So a graduate student is a student who's working towards a degree after their bachelor's, and you could expect to find other undergraduate students. The structure of the group, as I said, varies based on the advisor's style. So it could be that you are advised by a graduate student in the lab. It could be that you're advised by a postdoc. It could be that you're advised by a senior undergrad student, or it could be that you're being advised by the professor directly. So it really depends on the structure and the size of the research group that you've joined, and also the type of school you're in. So I'll say an example here as well. Wellesley College, we don't have graduate students. We rarely have postdocs in computer science. So usually all the mentorship and the structure is all undergrads. So it's undergrads who work with senior undergrads all together in the lab with the professor directly. All right. Now, in the lab, how should you plan your time? What should you expect? Well, again, varies based on the project and advisor. But know that there are typically some common things that we advise our students to plan for, regardless, and this is regardless of the size of school or the type of group. You need to plan for time of research. And when we say that, here I mean literally block off times for doing research, for being in the research lab off of your schedule. You need to make sure that you can commit to this, that you can actually give it the time it needs. And if you're not sure how many hours to allocate, then you should have a conversation with your advisors as soon as you begin, so that you can allocate that time for your research. Allocate time also for your weekly research meetings. It could be just one, it could be multiple. Talk to your advisor about this. You should also have conversations, block time for conversations with lab mates about their projects. You will be surprised. You would think, oh, I'm only in here to do the work. No, the connections you make are so worth it. You're going to learn a lot from your lab mates. You're going to build a lot of great connections. Make sure to make time for that and to build time to have, walks and chats and meetings with your lab mates and maybe other professors to talk about their projects. It's really important. So those are what we would say with the three main things to block off on your weekly schedule when you're doing research. Okay, now what does research compensation look like? Remember the funding question I mentioned earlier? Well, this is where, it's important to know, how are you getting compensated for research if you are? And it varies. Again, sorry, so many of these, it varies. And we're trying to capture as many of the variations as possible. So here it varies. Compensation can be either in the form of credit. So sometimes most schools actually offer credit for research in the form of, it could be called an independent study course. It could be called a directed study course. Ask around. Probably you have one of those types of courses where you do research and you get credit for it. Otherwise, research is usually funded by individual faculty project budgets. So if the faculty has a budget for undergraduate students, then you could maybe get some payment, as a compensation for the research you're doing. And that payment can be in the form of hourly payment that's similar to a work study position, or it could be in the form of a stipend for longer programs that usually go for the duration of a summer. All right. Alternatively, maybe you're not getting credit, maybe you're not getting paid, but there's also still an option to be part of a lab as a volunteer. or to what we call shadowing. So being a volunteer or shadowing in a lab means that you are typically not getting paid and you're not getting credit for this position. But it's a good thing. It's a good opportunity because it gets you involved in the research project and thus increasing your chances of joining that project or the lab in the future. All right. Now I'm going to pause here again for more questions. Questions about what happens once you get started. As you're doing research, what can you expect within the lab? Again, waiting for a few seconds. Okay, for those of you who are still thinking of questions, we'll have time at the end as well to chat. So I'm gonna move on to our very last point. So now we understand what undergraduate research is. Oh, sorry, we have questions. So we have a question here that says, what kind of responsibilities would undergraduates have in a lab compared to graduates and postdocs? Ooh, I love this question. So that's a really good question. Thank you. So what kind of responsibilities should you expect? So remember the structure that we said over here. I'm quickly going to go over there. We said you can have postdocs, grads, or other undergrads. So typically, the postdoc is someone who already has a PhD. So they're usually leading a small project under the supervision of the professor. So the professor already has their funding, they have their money, and they could hire postdocs who already have PhDs, and they do a lot of supervision. So postdocs do supervision, and they become what we call principal investigators. They can supervise a project, they could try and get funding on their own, and they kind of have their own projects, and they do a lot of mentorship. So it's kind of like the position right before being a professor. Graduate students are there to get their PhD or to get their master's. So to go more into responsibilities, expect it to be a gradual set of responsibilities. So if you're going down up, undergraduates would typically be involved in tasks that are assigned to them. And again, differs between one lab and the other. But usually for undergrads, the tasks are very well defined. They're like, go analyze this data, please. Or it could be run experiments and compare between those two things. We want you to run that code and compare between those two things. So or here's a user study we'd like to replicate. So can you please try and like kind of work through it and tell us how we can replicate it? So there's usually the tasks are very well defined, and they are well defined in terms of scope and duration, and they're smaller tasks. Grad students, they're usually there for, if they're a PhD, they're usually there for 5 years. So their role starts with the smaller tasks, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger until they kind of become in charge of their own project, and they end up coming up with their own thesis project and their thesis ideas. So it starts with the smaller tasks, but then eventually by the end of their program, they're the ones coming up with the ideas. They're the ones coming up with the problems. They're the ones, kind of managing how to solve those problems. I don't know if that addressed the question. And then postdocs, and like I said, are even higher. They work on higher level problems than graduate students. And I love this. Thank you, Julia. Yes. Yes, I love this. Thank you. Yes, generally
Christine,
speaking.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Oh no, go ahead, Julia. Sorry.
There's another question in the Q&A function. How long do research labs typically last?
Ooh, I like that. So we're talking undergrads. So for undergrads, usually it's a semester by semester position. So if I'm talking from a semester basis, and there are sometimes positions that last a year. And it varies from one advisor to the other, but usually does not last more than a year. The commitment is not for more than a year, because the expectation is that the student, might switch to another group or might decide to, to do something else by the end of the academic year. All right. Sounds good. Hopefully, I love that. Thank you for the question. Oh, we got another one. How can undergraduate researchers balance the demands of academic coursework with the time and dedication required for conducting in-depth research? And what strategies can be implemented to maintain high standards in both areas? And then the other one is a different question. Thank you so much for those questions, Bob. So actually, let's address the first one. How can you balance the demand of academic coursework and the dedication needed for research? This is where it's very important to know how to plan your time. Our big advice is talk to your advisor from the very beginning, or whoever is the one who is going to be doing your mentorship. So whether it's your advisor or it's the postdoc or the grad student that you're going to work with, and set expectations from the very beginning. And expectations meaning that you need to know how many times a week would you be working, how often are you expected to be in the lab, and how many hours are you expected to be there physically in the lab, or if you should work offline. And then from your peers, you can kind of ask for estimates of how much time you should block off your schedule. And I really highly recommend this, blocking off the time off your schedule. Don't make research the thing that I'll do it when I have time. You might end up not doing it. Same thing for your coursework. Don't do it the other way around. We're like, I'm going to prioritize research and do coursework when I have time. No, just have those definite blocks that will be the no touch zone. This is the time for research, nothing else will be done. And then similarly have blocks for your courses, where there's will be coursework. No research is allowed to be done for you. So this is going to be, it's going to need a lot of self-discipline. And that's for me, like my best advice, time blocking. Another question here is, in what ways can undergraduate research overcome limited access to advanced resources, such as specialized databases or equipment, and still produce meaningful and impactful research within their field of study? I love this question, and I'll be honest with you. It's this challenge that, I personally see every now and then because I work in a smaller school and we usually don't have access to a lot of resources. This is where it would be, have the conversation with your advisor. There are resources available in different places. It could be that your advisor is collaborating with, larger labs, and usually the common thing is to get access to some of those resources by collaborating with people in larger labs who have those resources. But you can still produce meaningful research that will be impactful, even if you don't have access to those fancy resources. It's all about, kind of strategizing and working with your strength. What is it that you're strong at? Focus on that until you find, a way to access those, resources that you're missing. Another question here is, how should we go about writing research statements based on undergraduate experience we have that isn't directly related to our future research, but is still relevant experience? Oh, I love this. Actually, I think this question, I mean, we can talk more about it towards the end if you want to, but I think this question will be actually greatly addressed in the other workshop series about how to write your research statements. There is a workshop for that. And their sessions are all about, focusing how to write the statement, how to set up your CV, how to get things prepped. And they're still in their second session. We're going to talk about it again at the end to kind of tell you where they're at right now. And there is definitely a way to kind of work on your statement to make sure that you're, carefully talking about future research. All right, thank you. Those were great questions. Thank you. All right, I only have one last part and then we'll go back to questions. I promise. We'll go back and address this. If you feel like I haven't answered things, the way you wanted, what you didn't hear what you wanted to hear, we'll keep talking more about it at the end. Last thing I wanted to talk about is, what are the outcomes? So what should you expect out of that undergraduate research experience? And this is where I only have like two things to really focus on. One is the knowledge and connections that you will get. Really, that is one big thing you get out of research. One, you will learn more about a specific research topic and area. You will really get that experience. Even if you are not directly involved in deciding the problems and deciding what to do and like deciding timelines, you will be involved in it. You will hear the conversations, you will learn, you will read. So you will learn more about that topic. And then you'll learn a lot of skills that you can apply in future research projects or industry positions. And here's the thing, there's a misconception that if you do research, then that's it, you're only doing it for the sake of grad school. No, the skills you learn in doing research applies in so many different settings, including industry positions, and it shows, by the way, when you're doing interviews. Skills like what? Technical skills. Number one, you're going to learn how to do things. You're going to learn different programming language. You're going to learn how to work with different systems. So you are going to gain technical skills. You are going to gain research skills in reading papers, writing papers, creating presentations, summarizing your research, knowing how to present your research to people with different expertise. These are all amazing things to learn. Communication skills. You're going to learn how to present, how to talk, how to share information. There's a lot of things that you will gain from research positions. Okay, this is just summarizing some of the main skills. Another thing that's very important that you get out of research experiences is that you increase your potential for professional advancement. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that the connections you build. You're going to build connections with experts in the field who can then help you in future positions. They can be professors who write recommendation letters for you. They can be peers, collaborators that you've worked with that can then eventually become managers who can kind of share with you open positions in their companies or give you referrals into your companies in the future. You will also build connections with peers who can later be collaborators and good mentors. So it's not just about the connections you're making with the people that are above you, that are higher up, professors and so on, but don't forget also the connections you're building with your peers, because those are going to be your network. Those are going to be the people around you. They're going to be your supporters. They're going to be your mentors, and hopefully in the future, collaborators. All right, so there's a lot that you will get, but also you'll get publications and presentations. So there's also some, quantifiable thing that you can also get out of research. Another outcome is the results you're going to produce. So you're going to produce results. You're definitely going to produce something, even if the result is that there's no result. That happens a lot in research, by the way. But whatever it is that you're going to produce can be shared and presented to peers and experts in the field. And the different formats of presentation here, you could be presenting your work in so many different ways. You can either present it as an oral presentation by actually, standing up and giving a presentation to the audience, or doing it over Zoom virtually. You can be giving what we call a poster presentation, where you summarize your research in a scientific poster and you print it out and you hang it somewhere at a conference, and then you present your work through that poster presentation. It could be through the form of writing a paper. So it doesn't even have to have the part of, I have to stand there and talk. It could be that you participated in writing a paper, and that paper was then published, and it was shared among your peers and experts in the field. And that's how you're, disseminating your results. And so these presentations can be at, it could be within your research lab. So whether it's the oral presentation or the poster presentation or the paper you're writing, it can be at the level of just sharing within your research lab. It could be at the level of sharing within your school and department. It could also be at the level of sharing at a research conference with experts and peers from all over the globe. Sounds good? With that, I am done with officially the presentation that I wanted to give, and I will pause again to get questions. We'll wait for a few more questions here and there, and then we'll end with the more opportunities to engage with your PhD. Is that okay, Julia, or do you want to finish the last few slides? You're okay with that? Okay, awesome.
I think it's okay if we finish the last few slides and then answer some of the
Do you want
questions.
to?
Make sure
Let's.
that we're able to share the appropriate information.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's do that then. So, okay, I'm going to end with the last few slides to tell you more about other opportunities that you have to engage with your PhD, and then we'll address the questions and also give you more time to type up your questions. So what else? What is coming up? So the upcoming workshop from this series, that's all focused about, research awareness. Ask me anything about research. So the next session is going to be an Ask Me Anything session. It's going to be in the form of, hopefully, we're going to bring in experts. We're going to bring in a panel, and you can have actually other people to ask questions to. So this is where, prep all your questions. You can talk about anything that is related to undergraduate research, or research in general. You can also ask questions about, what is it like in graduate school and so on. How to prepare, please bring any and all questions you may have about research. And then for in terms of the rest of the fall schedule, after the Ask Me Anything about research, the last but not least session we have is about networking with researchers. And this is going to be a very interactive session where we're going to bring in a bunch of, experts, and you can get to chat and network with them. All right, upcoming workshops. So don't also forget about the graduate school application workshop. And this kind of addresses the question we had earlier. And Julia also sent the link for that information about that in the chat. We have another series of workshops going on that's all about graduate school applications. The next one is September 25th, and it's all about highlighting your personal experiences and interests. So it's actually perfect. That exactly fit the question that was asked. That's about how can I talk more about my research experience without saying everything about my future. So future research, intentions. So attend this session. I think you're going to learn a lot from it. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff. And here's the QR code for you to register for that workshop. And then before we end, we want to leave this out here. So before you leave, please complete our survey. Here's the QR code. Also, when you end the meeting, you are going to get the set of survey questions. Please complete them. They help us make sure that we're offering you the things you need, that we're giving you the information you need. All right. I'm going to keep this up here for a little bit while I read some questions in the chat. All right, so we got a few questions here. So what key strategies and considerations should I apply when selecting and refining research topics to ensure they are both meaningful and contribute valuable insights to my field of interest? Oh, I like this. Okay, that's really tricky. Okay, that's a good question. It's a tricky question. Because it really depends on, the institution you're in and how you can find the faculty who are working on projects that would fit your field of interest. So let's make that assumption. There are faculty in your department. You have access, and you are aware of those opportunities within your school or department that that are in your field of interest. So now it becomes then what are the strategies and consideration I can, oh, thank you, to apply when selecting and refining research topics to ensure they're both meaningful and contribution. So I would say this is my advice, and this is what I would advise my students as well. It is to reflect frequently. So you join a project because you felt that this project matches your field of interest and it's valuable to you. Join it, and then every couple of months, go back and reassess. Are you doing what you thought you were doing? Are you contributing to this project the way that you thought you would contribute? Do you think you're learning from it what you thought you'd be learning? Does it fit what you wanted? What is it meaningful enough for you or not? And this would be my advice. So just, go and reassess that every couple of months. And if you get to the point where you realize, wait, I'm doing something that is not what I wanted to do at all, at least with that, you would know what you wanted to do. And then look again.
I will
That would be
also
my advice
add
for this. Yes, Julie.
that the other sessions, the graduate school application workshops, will cover this in the next session.
Oh, really? Awesome then. Okay.
Well, in the sense of thinking about what is a research topic, what are the types of considerations you should keep in mind? It's going to be covered in the next session or in the next 3 sessions, really. Christine, as we close out, there is one more question in the chat. Are there research labs that are conducted virtually or hybrid or in person and virtual?
Yes, there are a lot of professors now allow the virtual option, especially with what now that there was a period where we're doing everything virtually. There are a lot of opportunities where professors do allow for virtual opportunities. I am not sure though about REUs, because there's like sort of this requirement that you have to go to the institution, and it's part of the experience that you go to another institution and you become part of that community. But I would say that for internal opportunities and within your department, yes, there should be options. You should be able to find options for virtual, and it could be a question that you can ask the advisor. By the way, do not hesitate to say, hey, I am very interested, here are my qualifications, what are your opinions about hybrid options for this? They exist.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you'll continue to join us in the coming sessions.
Thank you, and thank you all for your questions.